Okay, so we'll call it to order.
Yes,
The
sir.
first thing is, anyone want to add anything to the agenda? Any corrections or additions? Okay. We had already previously approved the minutes, so that's not on the agenda, but that we did at the working meeting. And then we'll start out with Don.
Okay, there was a rec committee meeting Monday afternoon. Went over a few things. A couple of things that might be of interest. Cortez Beach, that property has been purchased by an individual who intends to build a home on the site.
One home?
Huh?
One home.
One home.
Okay, interesting.
I've heard there's a few other buildings as well they're talking about now.
My understanding was a individual bought it with the purpose of building a home.
Single home.
That would be a nice
Now,
lot.
it might be other than that, but that was the last I heard.
I have anecdotal information. I'm not sure if it's true, but he's thinking about building like a casita for his children near
Yeah.
the main home.
That's a rumor I heard.
And that's anecdotal. I can't.
But I mean, that was my understanding. He is allowing use of the beach until he starts construction.
Say that again?
He is allowing the
Beach?
beach to be used
And
until he starts construction. All of the POA equipment has been removed though, picnic tables and buoys and all that kind of stuff have been removed.
you say when they're gonna start construction?
Don't know.
And how about the beach use after construction?
I'm sorry?
How about using the beach after they build their house?
No, it's private property once he starts
So,
construction,
so
everything.
no Cortez Beach, basically.
No Cortez Beach, yeah. He's allowing use until he starts construction. That's where that is. The outdoor pool is opening Monday under current restrictions, so I think the maximum number of people that'll be allowed in the pool is 50.
Oh, wow.
50.
Sounds like a lot.
And pool admittance, they'll be in family groups, one family group at a time. Once they reach the limit, no more can come in until somebody leaves. The pool will be open from 12 to 6 daily. And it's my understanding that they're going to start using the morning hours to conduct some of the classes that are normally done at the natatorium, were done at the natatorium. But since the natatorium, the indoor pool is closed, they haven't been able to do those classes. I think they're going to try to start up some of them at the outdoor pool, and those will be done in the morning, which is why they're not opening up until noon. All the Stars and, I think almost all of the Stars and Stripes events have been postponed and are now scheduled for the weekend of September 25th through the 27th. That includes the Kids Fishing Derby, team tournament. So Brad and I had some discussions back and forth and Stacy on alternatives to try to keep the Kids Derby going on the 4th, but we weren't able to come up with any way that we could make it work that did not involve parking cars on a golf course fairway and having people that wasn't gonna fly. So
Game and Fish had restrictions. The pond size had to be an acre. We have a few ponds that meet that on the golf course. One is like number 12 on Magellan. It is right at an acre. And it has complete access all the way around the pond. Another is number 1 on Isabella, the original number 1 on Isabella. It's just over an acre and it has access all the way around the pond. But for both of those, parking would have to be on the golf course. The one on Magellan is behind a bridge, so people would be driving their vehicles across the cart bridge, which is probably not safe either. So it was just most efficient for us to just postpone it. Hopefully all the restrictions are lifted and we can have it where we've had it for years, where it's been. And we could do it on a bigger pond like Magellan Pond. They're along Ponce de Leon Drive, but you turn 250 fish into a 6.5 acre pond. the chances of the kids that are coming there catching the fish are pretty slim.
Yeah.
So, we want kids to catch fish when they come to something like that, so it's probably just best for us to postpone it, so.
Okay.
Access to that hole would not be good.
No, parking would probably be a problem. You have
Well,
people
just
walking
getting-
across that street, and
Just
that
getting
that
to
wouldn't
the-
be safe.
You couldn't get vehicles over there, I don't
They'd park across the street and you'd,
think. Yeah.
You'd almost have, if we did it in
Yeah, park
Magellan, you'd
across the
almost have to,
street,
to close the golf course, park them in the golf course parking,
And
and have an attendant out on the street, stopping traffic, letting
Yeah.
them cross and all that stuff. And
Bus
then they're
them up there in
walking
carts or
quite a
something.
distance, so it just wouldn't be.
I mean, like I said, we went through multiple alternatives and none of them just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, archery, some of you may be interested in archery range. It's been out there, for a number of years now, and of course, it was originally on the budget for this year and got moved to next year and will likely get moved again. But, I had sent out an email to some people that expressed interest and I sent out, I guess, about 80 emails and got 30 replies. And then last week or the week before, a group of us met. The intent was to start and form an archery club. Because the only way to get this thing moving is, to get a club and some people behind it, like bocce ball has done, and lawn bowling and pickleball and all those. And so a group got together and they all volunteered to help start a club. Mark Quinton is gonna lead that process, and he just joined the rec committee, so he's gonna head up the archery range project on the rec committee too. He retired, he worked for many years for Hoyt, they're big
Yeah,
archery.
yeah.
And he's a championship, he's won lots of archery championships, and he's a teacher, an instructor, archery teacher. So I think that's really great that he's going to be involved in that, and I think there's a real opportunity there. And they're already looking at sites and places that they can get started for little or no output on the part of the POA. And so that looks very promising, and I know a number of people are interested in that. Beach patrol is rolling along while the beaches are open, and they've been patrolling primarily the beach at Balboa. I think you saw the article in the Voice of the 3 people on the patrol. Well, now it's 2 people. They've already lost 1.
The
That's
girl
what-
or one of the guys?
Huh?
The girl or one of the guys?
I think it was a young lady. That's my understanding from discussions yesterday. And it's a very difficult job, and I think that person decided they didn't want to do it after a confrontation with somebody. That was just what I heard. I don't know. I don't know if that's the exact reason or whatever. That's where that is.
That's too bad.
And we started work on the fees for next year and the capital project for the recreation department for next year, with the intent of having recommendations for the July meeting. And that's it.
You guys are busy.
Yeah,
That's good.
Did you have your meeting by Zoom, or are you doing this thing?
we have a subcommittee on fees and capital, and they will be meeting,
No, I meant your last recreation committee meeting. you were-
that was it was Monday.
And was it like this, or was it on Zoom?
Oh, no, it was a Zoom meeting.
Zoom meeting.
There's too many, if everybody shows up for the rec committee, you'll have 11 members plus, so that would
Couple
be,
liaisons and staff.
you'd be over 12 for sure.
Is that what the limit is? We got 11 in here today.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could-
I mean,
Well, I would be in favor of, you could do these outside. Like we did at the Balboa, or, and then you take away because you take away the risk for this age group having inside meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, I know we could, I just,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, Stacy's
I just was
decided to
curious. I was
continue.
just curious, that's
No,
all.
she just decided to continue with the Zoom.
Mhm.
Can I ask a question? Are you involved with the 4th of July? Has
I-
that been
Yeah,
not, yes, no?
yes, to some extent, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I was involved in some of the activities.
Well, really, there's not gonna be anything, right, this year?
There's not gonna be anything this year to speak of.
Yeah.
I do believe that Greg said something about he was gonna have a band out in the parking lot, but, you
Wait
know,
for a
they're
grand opening of the
Explore,
arena or something?
Explore, but I don't,
Oh, for that.
yeah, he was gonna have a band out in the
No
parking.
fireworks is what you're saying?
But there's no fireworks. Those are planned, for September the 25th, I believe.
Mhm.
Have you heard anything about the marina being completed, when they're gonna have an opening? Anybody?
I mean.
Well, they said Memorial Day, they just didn't say which year, so they missed it this year, so maybe Memorial Day next year.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you can see, if you've been over there, you can see they're continuing to work, and
Yeah.
there's people
Oh, yes.
working there
Yeah.
every day.
Oh, yeah,
So they're making progress. Just
they're
don't
making
know how much
progress,
longer.
yeah. Maybe by the 4th.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, next on the agenda, to keep plugging away, is the lake assessment update. And I'm sure not everybody's done an update. I'm gonna maybe pass one of these down to, I don't know if Don has one of these or not, you can pass one down to Dick and to everybody else that hopefully has one. And this, I think, is a good part of the board discussion today, because it gives us a chance
I
to
don't know
talk
why my
about
color didn't
what,
show up.
what activity, but essentially the idea, just to summarize, the idea is that every lake has a committee member responsible for going through this assessment. We've started to do a little bit of work to try to calibrate our assessment, since two of us look at the same thing and maybe come up with a different level of how important it is. But to my mind, when this is working well, and if we go through it, everybody gives a report, it also would feed nicely into the budget, because things that need work or need, for example, the docks on several of the lakes, if that's rated poorly, it leads into, okay, if we think that's important to be done, it's an easy way to communicate, and then at budget time, the board can say, yeah, we can afford to do this, or we can't afford to do this. So anyway, maybe we'll just make a quick run around if anybody wants to update it. Because I think we'll pass this out, we can even make the changes before the meeting this afternoon, although I'm confident that no one's going to study it at this meeting we're at, but just for our own benefit to keep it up to date. So maybe go around and Alan, I don't know if there's any changes on yours. You had sent me some changes that I had made
I got a question on the Balboa one.
yeah, go ahead.
Is the erosion on common ground, are we talking the island there, whoever did that, is that?
There's a lot of common ground around that.
I know there's a lot.
I don't know there's
Well, there's two,
specifics too.
yeah, but there's, yeah, I
The
didn't
area
do
of
it.
concern.
Dennis did it, but there's two that fit with your budget planning as well as
The two
the,
islands.
it's the island and plus along that one run. I thought there was another area there that you were looking to put riprap.
Not on Balboa. We're
Okay.
talking about DeSoto.
Okay, maybe
Along
that's it.
Colella,
Okay.
but,
Yeah.
the islands on Balboa were
Yeah.
what we had earlier.
And as far as we know, might as well just say it out loud, as far as we know, that's still in the operating budget this year. I don't know, we don't know if that's changed as a result of the financial stress from the virus, but we weren't gonna bring it up. If it's already approved, there's no point having it rediscussed. But if everything was canceled, then that's one that we would probably advocate should be high on the list of needs of things in the village.
Which one was that you're talking
The
about?
island on Balboa.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we'll just leave that alone because we think it's approved. And no point,
It
somebody
has-
suggested,
yeah.
no point to let sleeping dogs lie, somebody said.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Rob? Any update on your lake or anything different? It looks,
Nope.
this is fine with, the assessment the way it's here is fine with you?
Yep, parking lot, I mean, after a rain last night, it was like a lake in the parking lot.
I did, I can speak to that a little bit. I did meet with, the street supervisor last week. He and I went around and looked at parking lots. And we're gonna work it into like a 5-year plan to, hopefully within 5 years have them all paved. So, that's something that he and I are gonna work on, to start working that stuff in, and Coronado would be the first, and we'd move from there. So, that was a discussion he and I had last week.
And that kind of fits with this assessment here, is Coronado's the worst.
Yeah.
Cliff?
Hey, I've got a question about this erosion on the private land here. There's, this happens to be on the lot next to us. There's some trees near the edge of the lake, and it looks like it's not gonna be too awful long before the undercutting might compromise those. So what's the stance on that? Is it POA contacting the owners and asking them to do something, or will the POA do something, or?
If there's a specific location, if you can let me know where it is, if it's right by you, I can swing by and take a look at it, and we can see what we can do.
Yeah, the specific one is just to about 4 feet to the west of that little ditch that runs down the west side of our house.
Okay.
And then there are some along that lot and around towards that big lot that has all the big long seawall. There are 3 or 4 trees there that are pretty close. And of course, I don't have any way of seeing how far the undercut's going.
I'm making a note to get with you, and we'll have a look at it.
It might be if you contact the owner just for their own benefit, they might want to
Yeah.
throw a seawall up.
Yeah.
'Cause
I mean, they kind of, it's one where they didn't have an opportunity, they kind of missed it, because we just had the lake down for them to do stuff like that, so.
Well, and if there's much land involved there, when we had our wall repointed, the young man that did that says he charges about $159 a linear foot to build a seawall. So, that's a pretty eye-watering piece of expense if you got any kind
Right.
of lakefront at all.
Seems reasonable,
Last year when the lake
Huh?
was down.
Seems reasonable, though. That's
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
quite a job.
But you should, I got 3 estimates last year, and they were 30-40% apart. So you really have to get estimates.
Yeah.
And the ones who are busy, generally, they price accordingly. If they're busy, then they don't say no, they just, like,
Shoot a high
even with the
price.
lake down, there was a lot of demand.
Yeah.
And I found a big difference. I had 3 different estimates, and they were pretty far apart. I ended up getting a pretty good one from it. I would recommend, there's a bunch of good ones, but I would recommend, I can't remember his name, but I could give somebody a recommendation that I had good experience with and others have had. But, and then moving on to Cliff, I'm sure you haven't gotten involved in this yet, so we use the historical information for the lakes that you were gonna do.
No, haven't.
No, of course not, but we only just did, so Granada and Maria, I put down what I had historically on those. And then we'll move to,
Sophia, I sent you an email that 2 of them didn't agree with what I submitted.
and I fixed that, I had looked at historical data, but I saw your email, so I've now fixed it to
Reflect.
reflect what you assessed it at.
Yeah, and the only other thing was there were 2 notes on there where I gave them 2s, and it should have talked about non-voter fishability. A wharf would fix it, and the parking lot should be paved, even though they were ranked 2, not needing immediate. I think the notes are important as to why they were ranked 2.
Right. Well, one idea that we had thrown around a little bit is, and maybe consistent with how, I'm hearing how the board's looking at 5-year plan, 3-year plan, and 1-year plan. So if you threw out there as a committee that over time, it would be worthwhile to pave most of the parking lots or all the parking lots, then you put some in the 3-year plan, some in the 5-year, and then when it becomes appropriate, if you prioritize them, it would help you to have a priority for which ones should be targeted in 3 years, 5 years, and beyond.
Since we're talking about Sophia, not directly with the assessment, but I'll throw it in anyway. Brad, the grass is, probably needs cutting. I know you don't do that, but along the dam, because people are fishing there on a regular basis, and it's getting hard to get in and out of there.
The dams are under the common property forestry manager. I did speak with him yesterday. And I knew they had a contract originally to have them mow twice a year.
Yeah, it
And
needs
because
it.
of the COVID restrictions, they've cut it back to 1. They're gonna have them mowed in September. So it'll be sometime before they're mowed, but between now and then I have worked with him, we're spraying the faces of the dams, so the other side. And he's gonna get with the street folks, and when they're in the area with their bush hogs doing the streets, they're gonna mow the tops of those where the roads are, so that folks that are walking can still walk the trails and walk the tops of the dams, and it should help with access on the fronts of those, so, we're working on that part of it, so.
Okay, and the lake is getting some silt from a ditch similar to your situation where because of some changes they did on the other side of the road, it's washing a lot of water down between our houses now, and it's washed all the stone out into the lake, and now it's washing the mud from the ditch into the lake. But Temple is aware of it, and apparently he's got some plan to fix it. So
Okay.
I just mention it, as you're boating along out there, you can see that it's really built up now inside the lake, outside of our seawalls.
At the working meeting, we had decided that everybody who does the lake would also periodically do secchi readings on the lakes. But on your lake, Bill also does it every week anyway. So you kind of have a pretty easy, you have pretty good data on secchi readings for the,
Yeah, as you know, I was doing it every Sunday on
Correct.
the other side of the lake
Right.
from where it's being done now. But the lake got so clear, I couldn't find a deep enough spot, not having a
Right.
boat to a deep enough dock, so that a dock that had deep enough water
Right.
that I could take a proper reading. So I'm leaving it to him now, as far as the Secchi reading.
yeah, and he sends that out to everybody I know, so
Yeah.
and then you get kind of a historical, because I think this is valuable when you get, because some lakes run much clearer than other lakes. So when you get a big change, then that kind of would be a warning signal that something might be up.
And that lake goes up and down considerably. It'll
Yeah.
go from 2 feet to 5 feet in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
What was the last working meeting, I think you mentioned how deep it needs to be to get an accurate section reading.
It should, to get an accurate secchi reading, if you're reading, if you drop the secchi down and you're in 10 feet of water and you get to 8 feet and you can still see it, you need to be at least double that depth.
Double that depth.
So if it's reading 25 feet, which it has on Balboa on
Right.
occasion, you need to be in at least 50 feet of water for that to be an accurate reading.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Great. Jerry, any
Yeah, no update on Canada, except I did read in the police report that there were some people misbehaving in a boat out there, apparently got the police called on them. That's kind of a small lake to be doing what they supposedly were doing out there. But no other updates as far as the inspection goes. And I recently picked up Balboa,
right.
and haven't done a full inspection out there yet, but some of the shoreliner feedback just recently is one of the lights are out on the no wake buoys. Brad, I know you had to reposition those. And I haven't had a chance to get out there at night and check it myself, but one of the residents along there said that
Do you know
the red light was out.
Do you know which one it is, what area it is?
The no wake buoys in the very north end of the lake, the ones that had to be repositioned.
Okay,
Okay, and it's the one closest to
to the south?
the house that was moving on.
Okay.
Okay,
All those lights were purchased by the Balboa Yacht Club.
okay. So,
And they've been working on those. I'll get with DC and get him,
okay,
make sure that he knows.
okay. The other, couple other things was apparently there's still a lot of sand and stuff on the ramp, and people are complaining about that. And then the final thing was there was a pretty lengthy thread on Nextdoor about wake boats this past week. And so, once that got started, a lot of people weighed in on it. So, I know we've got regulations on length of boat, size of boats, and that sort of thing. And I know we've got regulations concerning wake boats. But apparently I was out on the lake Saturday evening with some friends that we had over, and the wakes were so bad out there, and I've got a tri-team, it was coming over the front of my boat.
Wow.
And I was just barely putting along, and it was washing over the front of my boat. There was a lot of traffic out there and a lot of big boats. So, anyway, that's just some of the feedback I've heard from residents this past week.
Yeah, and that's what, the things you addressed actually consistent with what Dennis had kind of assessed
Right.
in the previous. And then Dennis, anything from your,
On Cortez,
yeah.
okay, this doesn't match what I turned in,
Okay,
So
fix
you-
it, maybe I had an old sheet, that's,
okay?
You tell me.
As soon as I get back to the house, I'll dig it up
Okay.
and forward it to you so you can, the only thing really was the erosion on the North Shore. We talked in the meeting before with Brad. Brad said that was some of the reserve land from Cooper where it's undermining under the trees. The trees are gonna fall in the water, which is good for the fish habitat, but, so that and we did a little riprap at the ramp where it's eroding. It's not bad, it's not terrible, but it'll eventually cave in.
What we've talked about and what I would really like to do there is kind of what we're talking about doing at Colella on DeSoto when we've got that down. If we get funding to do that, doing that area on Colella to increase activity there, increase access there, and then when we draw Cortez down the next time to rip wrap around the island with the gazebo on it and down around and around where we do the youth fishing derby, just so we can keep that sprayed and it cuts out on the erosion. So, is there a specific spot at the ramp that I just need to go look at it?
I sent you pictures of it. Well, when I copied you on the report, I had pictures attached, so, but I can send them to you again.
Okay. I'll get out there and have a look at it.
yeah, I had kind of gone through the report, I didn't see the numbers, but I had an old, so I probably took numbers from a previous assessment from before, so fix that.
Okay, I'll get that to you as soon as I get back to the house.
Great, and then, DeSoto, Carrie?
Oh, yeah, there were 3 of mine that were yellow, but the yellow didn't show up on your deal. Well, you see where the
Oh,
twos
yeah,
are?
true, yeah,
The yellow didn't come up.
yeah.
The erosion on the private land, Brad already knows, Colella, that we're gonna be taking care of when our lake is lowered this fall. There was erosion on private land, and Brad, I think you know, it's the one with the yellow wall, where the yellow wall is breaking. It looks like it's gonna fall in the lake one of
Yeah.
these days.
Okay.
That one, we were just out on the lake, and it doesn't look very good. Silting in all of our coves, which we're gonna be taking care of again when they do our lake this fall. I had called Brad about our next door neighbor that has weeds that are probably 1.5 feet tall around their dock, and the lady that owns the house is almost 90 years old. We've been taking care of it, hiring and firing the yardmen and so forth. And Brad said, I can't do anything about spraying it. She's got to do it, and she doesn't know how to do it, even though I've explained it to her. I went over there and did all the weeds. I got down, pulled out the ones I could pull out, cut the ones at the bottom, so it's all clean now. I did it with their 2 grandchildren up at the top watching me do the work, because they do nothing for the house, and they get free rent, but nothing. So they see this old lady over there pulling weeds. Anyway, it's all done, it looks beautiful.
I can tell you're happy about that.
Pardon?
I can tell you're happy about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got it done at least, and then I called the owner and I said, by the way, it's clean now, I did all the weeds. She said, what'd you do with all of it? I said, I put it on top of your dock. And then I found large boards that were underneath the dock that had gotten in there over the last couple of years and got jammed. We're talking about big block. I put them on top, and I did see that they moved those by the house. So, they're off the dock.
Lucky they didn't throw them back in the lake.
Well, yeah, they did move them towards the house, so that was a good thing.
Okay. Then we'll move down to the committee comments, then, Dick, I don't know if you have any comments at this stage, or fill us in on what's going on a little bit.
I've got quite a few. I don't know where to begin. We've been busy. I'd like to start with this kind of thing. This is exactly the kind of fact-based information that we would hope would come out of committees. And this is good stuff here. And another committee that I'm on has come to me and asked me to tear up their charter and rewrite it so that they can become more engaged in the business of the community. And I said, do it. Do it. One of the things this board is trying to do is to get input from the village and use it. Not just put it over here, not just make these meetings Groundhog Day where it's the same meeting you've had the last time and the last time and the last time, but to get fact-based information and then use that information in the management of the village, which is really, really valuable. Especially when you look at the hours we're putting in. Diana Polowitz is probably working 60 hours a week. I'm working 40. We just lost a board member because the workload's a lot. It's a lot. It's a job. So God bless you for this. The board will really like this when you present it this afternoon. This afternoon is a discussion session. It replaces the old work sessions. It's the same thing, where we discuss issues before we vote on them, and we discuss them in public, not in some secret meeting. And that transparency thing is something we're trying to get across to the people, that, hey, it's your place. Here's an issue. We're talking about it. You have a chance to enter in. You can email in to these, closed sessions because of the COVID, but public sessions. And we're trying.
Yeah,
I mean, it isn't easy.
right. No, and the transparency, I'll just vote, and I think that goes a long way, even if people don't agree, and you know this well from living here, but it's when people think things are happening behind closed doors, all the trust goes away.
Well, we're trying to build that back.
Right,
And we're breaking some eggs doing it.
sure,
And okay, so we are.
right.
I'll give you a couple of big topics. One is the $3 million loan. That was a godsend. It actually is more of a gift than a loan, because if we dot all our i's, cross all our t's, we will use it for payroll and for other purposes under the constraints of the loan, and it's basically free money. And if we had not received that, we'd be in bad shape.
Yeah.
We're not in great shape, but $3 million in a $36 million business is a good thing. It's a good thing, and just recognize that if we dot our i's, cross all our t's, it's not a loan. It's basically a government grant that's very needed. Very
Is
needed.
one of the requirements is not, I know there's some of the requirements are around, not about this one particularly, but around making sure you keep all the employees.
Keep the employees. We've had some resignations.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
They don't count.
Okay, good.
They don't count against the tally. So things look good on that front, and we're lucky to get it. Well, actually, we're not lucky to get it. Some good people did some good work, and we got it. So anyway, that's a good thing for the village. This afternoon, and I don't want to give away in this meeting what I'm going to say this afternoon. This afternoon, I'm going to give a presentation on the executive search. I'm leading the executive search. I asked for it. I've had probably way more experience than anyone else on the board in hiring high-level executives, done it, been there. There's going to be criticism. Fine, bring it on. I got big shoulders. But we're doing it professionally. We've vetted almost 300 candidates so far. But, you know, when you do it through an internet search, through certain search parameters, you're gonna get a lot of fluff stuff. And we've got a very, very experienced headhunter handling it. Villager, no fee, and a top-notch former Fortune 500 person doing it. I mean, I thank her every day for the work she's done, because she's working tirelessly on this. The expected outcome is that we'll come down to possibly 5 candidates, present them to the board will vet each candidate, and then we'll make a decision. So that's where that process is. That'll be a fairly big discussion during the work session, and other than that, if you have any questions, I will try to answer them.
Dick,
Yes, ma'am.
welcome back.
Thank you.
The other thing, so happy to see John Paul in there as an interim.
Well, John stepped forward. You know, the trouble spots we have are golf. You know, we're gonna lose $2 million, over $2 million in golf this year. Food and beverage, we're gonna lose 500, 700 grand in food and beverage this year. John ran both of those with frankly half the staff that, you know, we have now. And so he's in there, you know, keeping the lights on and, you know, keeping things running until we can get a person in there, and God bless him, you know.
Well, I worked under him for 3 years in the golf committee, watching when he ran all the golf courses.
Well, and the restaurants.
And the restaurants. He did a great job. The one thing I liked about John Paul is John Paul has a personality that nothing bothers him. He can have people, I've watched screaming people at him at a golf committee, and he just stays real cool and calm and answers them well. And he always did a really good job.
Well,
so.
it's another example of a villager coming forward and trying to help, and, you know, good on him.
Yep.
Sounds good. Brad, you have any update before we?
I got a little bit. I added to what you had on there, so
Great.
I've got a few. The herbicide on Maria and Sophia, from what we can see, both lakes have responded really well to the applications. We did half a lake one time on each one, and came back 10 to about 12 days later and did the other half of each lake, and both seem to be doing really well. We've been on both lakes since, and the targeted plants and algae seem to be, there's some remaining, but it's dead and laying on the lake bottom. So that stuff's deteriorating, and hopefully it'll be gone before too long.
Turned out a lot better this year than it did last year.
We
A lot better.
were a little more aggressive in our approach this year. I kind of wish we treated Sophia earlier than we had in the past. I kind of wish we treated Maria a little bit earlier, but we're moving in the right direction.
Nice job.
So, thank you. As far as another update is, folks are still dredging on Lake Granada. I know originally we planned on them being done prior to Memorial Day, and they got down to, they had 4 coves remaining. And because it is a smaller lake, it doesn't get as much boat traffic. It's not like them being on Balboa and pumping it way across, you know, and closing off a large area. So I got with the contact on the lake and with admin, and kind of went back and forth through some emails, and the folks that live on the lake were in favor of allowing them to just finish up and be done instead of coming back later. So so they're still there. They're down to about 3 coves. Probably 2 as a whole, but they have 3 sites that's still yet to be done. They've done a lot of one. They ran out of bags, so they moved to another one. They've been working on 2 small coves, and then they're gonna go back and finish that one, and then they have a very small one still remaining. So hopefully by the end of next week, we get some bags coming in tomorrow for them. And they're still working today, but they're waiting on some bags. So when the bags get here, they can finish up. Hopefully by the end of next week, they'll be done. If you've seen the digest, and the lakes information in the digest, you'll see that we started the weed applications for property owners. We did the first round of those last week. We had 9 applications. The split in the cost is helping us on that already. What we'd have done last year for $20 each application, we're doing $25, and it basically it comes out to where they pay for us to, and it covers our cost of going. So we had 7 that were the $25 applications, 1 that was a $50, and 1 that was $100. So we're making some progress on that, where those all would have been $20 applications last year, and we didn't even cover our cost. So that's a good thing. If you've seen in the digest also, we have started the compliance surveys. They're pretty bleak, which is kind of scary. What we're seeing on the lakes. We've done all the small lakes from Penita and smaller. And visual compliance is still really low. So we do the survey, pass that information along to compliance, and if we don't see a decal, they're sending them a letter. It's not one of those where in the past it's been, you know, if they go through and they check all this and make sure you've bought it, and by policy, if it doesn't, if the decal is not displayed on the boat, then it's against policy, it's a violation. So they're sending them a letter telling them they've got to get their decals on the boats, and so they've got their hands full right now.
Which lakes have you done so far?
Penita, Granada, Sophia, Maria, Estrella, Isabella, all 5 of the East End lakes in Penita.
Now you're gonna start on the bigger lakes?
Probably tomorrow.
And how many hours do you think it took you to do that?
We did all 5 of the East End lakes in one day.
So that's about,
And we did them in about 6 hours. We did all 5 lakes in about 6 hours. And we spent about an hour and 15 minutes on Penita the other day. But also, as we go along, we're not only looking at decals, we're looking at boat docks that are in disrepair that need,
right.
you know, there was a dock on Penita that had boards missing, you know, holes in the boards, you know, so all those kind of things. We're taking pictures, documenting that, and one benefit of this year is I'm doing it all on iPad. I've got an iPad and I keep up with it on the iPad. When we leave the lake, if I've got everything in order and got all my pictures in order, I can send that information to compliance that afternoon. Where before we had to sit down and you go through and you input all that information into an Excel spreadsheet and then you send it over. We're update as we get done. So it's a lot more.
Question on docks, while you're on it. See a lot of these docks that still have the old styrofoam floaters with weeds growing out of them and everything else. What's our policy on that?
The styrofoam docks have been grandfathered in.
Really?
They can't be repaired. If they have issues with styrofoam, then they have to be replaced by the encapsulated.
Weeds growing out of them is an issue?
It is, but they can pull the weeds. So that's kind of a gray area. It's not, when they have to be repaired, if they have to be replaced, if their styrofoam is falling apart, then they have to replace it with encapsulated.
But the
If the
weeds,
dock
nothing
is-
you can,
Yeah, if they go
we have
along
one
with
real
boat.
bad one on DeSoto like that too.
Yeah, I bet there's more than one.
There's probably several, but if the boat dock is sinking, if the styrofoam has absorbed a bunch of water and it's sitting where the metal frame is right on the edge of the water, then they can do something about that too. So
Do you take notes on those? when you
We
use
do.
part? Okay.
we do. So we got that. Another thing I want to touch on is the Lakes Policy Committee Charter Review. I know we've looked at this about 25 times, it seems like. But I want us to take one more look at it, and I've been checking back and forth with Ella. Our process now, because things have changed since we talked about it the last time. My understanding is, we look at this again and make sure that these are like we want them, and then we pass it along to Mr. Garrison, is that correct? For you to present to the board? So let's take one more look at this. If we need to do a work meeting, we'll sit down and look at that, discuss, and then we can, pass it along to Mr. Garrison for him to dig for him to present, so we can get that stuff finalized and check mark on that and be done with it, so.
So when we did
Yeah.
that before,
Yeah, we-
it never did make it all the way through?
That's my
Because
understanding.
because we sat, we went through it with three of us,
Yeah,
brought it to the whole committee.
Yeah.
Everybody agreed, passed it on. But, okay, yeah, but no problem too, yeah.
Yeah.
It could be a work in progress, and there could be things you want to change still. It's nothing,
it should be, honestly, I think if everybody has it, or if we need to send out a most recent, let everybody have a look at it. And then
I've
we
got
can
a
even-
copy here, but I'm not sure this is the very last one.
And-
If
and I'm-
you-
yeah.
If you've got the last one, if you
I
send
think
it
I
out-
have the last one. I think the only thing that happened was to me, a little arbitrary. It didn't really matter, because there's a lot of ways you could write that and still be effective. But they came in and they changed the number of, we originally had 7 committee members, they changed to 9, and they changed when the term to June instead of April. So they're, for me, cosmetic changes,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter.
I think it's gonna go from 9 now to 11.
What?
And they also allow them
Yeah.
to vote.
Well, that happened after the
Yeah.
charter and was not included in the charter. So the
Yeah.
charter doesn't include, at least the way the change they were talking about, where they have Brad
Yeah.
and Dick be actually committee members.
Yeah.
In the past, they were something, I don't know, why, something else.
So it should be really simple. I mean, and if we wanna just do it via email, everybody have a look at it, we can even do a vote on it like that and pass it along before the next meeting if that's what we wanna do, so.
Is February 12th of this year the latest group? Anybody
As far
know?
as I-
That
as far as I
sounds like
know.
that could be it, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty finalized for about 6 months. And
What's it
then
say in your copy?
some little,
Yeah,
and these things can always say it's slightly different and still be effective,
Yeah.
add something you forgot. Because even when we did it, the funny thing about it, to me, was that it had no mention of fishing in the original charter. And the reality is, we spend a significant time working on fishing in this committee, so, yeah, it can always be improved.
but that was brought up this week, with admin, so it's something that we need to get done with and get passed along so we can check it off and be done with it completely. If we wanna, I would like, because this wake boat thing is something that's becoming more of an issue and more of an issue and more of an issue as people design boats so that they make bigger wakes. I don't know how we wanna attack that, if we wanna have a work meeting where we talk about wake boats and we talk about this, the lakes policy in the committee charter, and just, that's what we're gonna talk about. And we get those done and decide what we wanna, if we wanna make changes to different things, and, that's the time to do it.
Okay.
So, if y'all wanna do that, I'm good with that, so, something to discuss.
Okay.
But the problem with the wake boats is that they're ignoring the policy or the rule of not filling their ballast. And they fill their ballast so they can surf instead of, just a wakeboard and wakeboarding doesn't make that big a mess. But when they fill those ballasts up and they sink the back of that boat, like Jerry said, there's 4-foot waves out there. And they're just out there surfing up and down the lake. You know good and well they've got the ballast full.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that without filling the ballast. So I don't know if they need to be stopped a couple of times.
How many wake boats are out there, do you know? 1 or 2?
No, this weekend I saw another brand new one this weekend. And I'm not sure whether they're visiting or, there's a huge, I think it was a Moomba, black and orange one. Did you see that one?
The movement, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they were visiting or if that's somebody has bought one of them, but that thing is absolutely huge.
There is a owner on the lake that has a Moomba.
So Brad, not to get off in the weeds, we probably need to address this at a work meeting or
Yeah.
something. But I think it would be beneficial if we know somebody on the lake that has a wake boat, to maybe do a little demonstration for us. Maybe we do a little on-site thing on Lake Balboa, and look at the boat and see what it does and what does it do with the ballast field, so we actually know what we're talking about in person, and then we can, you know, certainly address it. But I think there needs to be something done as far as either the size of the boats that we're gonna allow on the lake, or maybe the number of boats that we allow on the lake, because it's too small for the traffic we have now.
I don't, you know, I read a lot of that stuff that was on Nextdoor, so everything I read, you know, it's gotta be true.
Hardly any of it.
But there was somebody in there mentioned that there are other styles of boats besides wake boats that are designed either for use of trim tabs or something
Yeah.
that will create big waves. So that type of boat is not addressed, I don't think, in our.
But they're large boats, and I think that's a consideration other than just wake boats that we
Yeah.
need to.
Well, there's, in our rules and regs, there is a size limit as
Right.
well.
But here's the thing, when those rules and regs were written originally, a big boat, a 28-foot boat was a pontoon boat and a big one. And most ski boats, when that was done, were 18, 19, 20 feet. Well, most ski boats now are 24, 26, and they're this deep. So it's a whole, the boats that are on the water now are completely different than they were when those were originally written.
Right.
So, if that's something we need, I'm not saying that it is, but if that's something that we need to address, then that's the place to do it.
Well, yeah, it seems to be coming up more and more. You know, we got an email from
Yeah.
Diana.
I would add one more thing, is, because I kind of brought up the rewrite of the rules and regs that I
Right,
submitted
put that
back
on
in
here.
February. It's later, but we
Right.
can jump forward. This may be because I suspect the same thing happened with that as the charter. I'm guessing you probably forwarded on and it fell through the cracks.
Well, I'm not sure we ever, I went back through the minutes, I'm not sure we ever I have your
Okay.
final thing, I think it's good, and I'm not sure we ever
Well,
finalized it.
but this discussion we're having right now, it kind of
It's
may
part of
call
it.
into, we need to make some more changes,
Yeah.
especially boat size, types of boats, and that kind of
Right.
thing. So if, I would say, if you're on the verge of resubmitting it, I might hold back on it a little bit
And
until we
that's-
rethink it.
That's the reason for
Let's
sitting down and
come-
having a discussion about it.
Right, you're not gonna solve one, but
Before we
let's come
send it.
back to that and see where we go with that
Yeah,
on the,
so.
okay.
One of the only other thing I've got right now is, we've opened entry for the fishing challenge. We've got the dates finalized. It's from July 4 to September 27. It's gonna be on Lake Balboa, Coronado, Cortez, and DeSoto. You have to be signed up in advance. You can sign up at any, you have to be signed up before you can enter a fish or catch a fish that's an entry. But you can sign up at any point in time. Visitors have to be signed up with an owner, so some visitor can't just sign up at random. An owner ID is gotta be on the entry form with the visitor, so we're trying to make it as specific as possible so that it's for owners and their sponsored guests, officially sponsored guests, and there are 3 different entries. You can do an individual, you can do a family, or there's a sponsored guest, and sponsored guest is more than an individual. Family is $25. That covers a POA defined family. And I look back through that when we wrote that in, and it's like the member, and this could be wrong, but there's a reference on the entry form that tells you where to go to get the definition completely. But it's like the member, their parents, their children, their grandchildren, their children's spouse. It's pretty specific, but those are on there.
And there was an entry fee as well.
It's $25 for the family entry. So,
Right.
What were the dates on that again?
July.
to 27th of September.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
We have not tagged those fish yet. We will tag those the last week of this month. So we're gonna tag them just prior to the event. I don't want the fish swimming around for, 3 weeks prior to the event, somebody catching one and mishandling it and it dying or something like that. We want them in for the event, and we want them to be ready when we're ready, so.
On the form, if you do family, there's no place to put family member names down.
You could put them on that, there should be several blanks below.
Yeah, but it says sponsored guest.
We can change that. that's simple.
Or, yeah, because that was confusing, I was getting ready to.
Yeah.
Enter the family, and I thought, well, you need to put the family names down, the names of the people, so.
Or have a separate one for a family, which has.
Either that, or
no
just
for
say
us.
the one that sponsored guests, say family members or sponsored guests.
And it could be a box, sponsored guest, check, family members, check.
Yeah, right.
And do it like that.
Okay.
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 We've changed that entry form the last 2 weeks, so hopefully this is the last update, so, but yeah, that's
And
simple. change.
sponsors,
We do have 5 sponsors, 6 sponsors as of right now. We have Remax as the title sponsor. The big fish will be Big Max. I don't know what it's gonna be, hadn't decided yet. Don't know what lake it's gonna be in, hadn't decided that yet either. For those of you that don't know, Katie and I will, and if we get the new employee on between now and then, we will be excluded from this, so we can't catch a fish that's part of it, but, so we have, real estate, or we have 3 different realties. We have Remax, and then HSV Real Estate, and then, Trademark, I believe. There's 3 of them. I've seen it, but I don't remember all of them. Then we have the Anglers Club and the Baitcasters Club. Both are sponsored on it, so. It's, we're expecting it to do real well, so we hope folks catch it. There'll be 75 fish in 4 lakes, from $50 to $1,500 tags in those fish. Those tags they're about, I should have brought some, I didn't think about it, but they're about this long. That's about what will be sticking out of the fish, 1.5 to 2 inches long. They're different colors. The colors are related to prize, value. There's a phone number on that tag. You call that number within 12 hours after catching that fish. Depending on what time of the day it is, whatever, you may be required to take it to one of the fire stations so the firemen can take pictures of it. If it's during the middle of the day, through the week, or something like that, or if it's the big fish, then obviously we want to get pictures and all that stuff of those big ones. So we'll probably, that'll be a different thing. We'll probably want to publicize that a little bit more if somebody catches the big one. So it's hopefully it'll be a good deal. Hopefully we get lots of entries on it, and we get to see some of the folks catch some of those tag fish.
Where are the tags on the dorsal?
They will be on the back, on one side or the other, on the side of the dorsal fin, right up on the back. It'll be, when you catch a fish, it'll be pretty obvious it's got a tag on it. It won't be easy for you to
In
miss.
the body or on a fin or something?
No, it'll be in the body. They go in the, like where the fillet would be of the body, they go in, and they've got like a T-handle on the bottom, and that you put them in with a needle. So you stick this needle in and you push them in, and the T flares out on the bottom and keeps it from pulling out.
So that keeps them more mobile probably than putting in a fin or something.
Yep, yep. So
Interesting.
we'll start that. We'll
Will
do
those
that.
things actually deteriorate over time?
No, they're plastic. They won't go anywhere.
I mean, will the fish shed them later or something?
It depends. They may rub them off or catch one on something, but if you follow on social media the Hot Springs Fishing Challenge, every once in a while somebody catches one in there from 2 years ago that they hadn't caught in the past. So they hang with them for a while. These are the same kind of tags that Game and Fish uses for that event.
are they doing theirs this year?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it this year.
And usually it's almost over by now.
Yeah, yeah. Usually there's been a lot of everything on social media, on the radio, people catching fish, and I haven't seen anything this year, so I doubt they're doing it this year.
This is the only electrofishing you're doing this year, correct?
Correct, as of now. We may do, because we didn't this spring, we may do a couple of lakes this fall. If we can hit everything just right, it probably would be nice to do a couple of lakes, at least do a little bit of sampling, but we didn't do
Probably a
any.
good idea, because I think we've got more pressure this year than in years past, and it'd be kind of interesting to see if we see any changes due to that kind of thing.
We have got a lot of pressure this year. The lakes have been busier than, as far as I know, busier than they've ever been. When Katie picked up money Friday, there was $670 in the box. Maybe I shouldn't say that on here. You can't get in the box, or you can't get them open now, but, you know, and all of them. But yeah, that we're collecting a lot of money in those. We've collected, with that not money, and she picked up money yesterday too. With that, we've picked up about $4,500 so far this year. And we averaged, the last 2 years has been about 6,000. So we're halfway, not quite halfway into the year with
So maybe the compliance efforts are also helping that.
compliance is up, at least at the boat ramps. We still do have some issues that we're working out on that, but compliance is up dramatically at the ramps. So we're making some headway on that.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay,
Hopefully that was enough.
yeah, good. You've been busy too. So, Chairman, I skipped over the board discussions, figured I'd do it in one shot with the chairman remarks. I'll see if Jerry will trade seats with me. I'm gonna just use that computer. So I was just gonna run through that presentation that I circulated so the idea is about 10 or 15 minute overview of what we're doing, and then 10 or 15 minute Q&A from the board, so we get some input and some discussion. Let's see if I can turn this on. You promised me it would turn right on, but I don't see it.
We're gonna get Paul.
I think Brad will get the tech.
You have looked at this before. Yeah, so anyway, the idea is it's a 15-minute
Might be good to, where's the meeting at this afternoon and what times it start? Make sure everybody's on the same page.
somewhere, yeah, I'm not sure where it is.
I'm not either, that's why I ask.
Yeah.
Didn't you say it's gonna be in this?
Our
room?
discussion session's right here,
Right here, okay.
At 2:30?
3.
3?
I'm sorry, 2.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
Yeah, he's at Coronado Center now working on an issue over there, so.
Okay. I could restart it, and that might do it.
Did the TV turn off?
It looks like,
That could be the TV may have just turned itself off after a time.
Probably did okay for HDM.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Here we
Okay.
go.
Good to have
So you get honorable technical support.
It's like checking the plug, isn't it?
Yeah, did you plug it in?
Mine at home, if it sits for the black screen or blue screen for so long, it shuts itself off, so I just wonder.
Okay, so yeah, so the idea is just to run through this, which I had sent around. So first, to state the obvious, the lakes, of course, are an important amenity for the village. It's a major draw for bringing in residents. It's keeping residents here. It's what probably brought a lot of us here. I moved here because of the lakes and golf courses, so it's a very important part. It enhances real estate values. The houses around the lakes, near the lakes, it helps with the values. The golf courses use the lakes for irrigation. They use the lakes for water hazards. And of course, the recreation is a big part of it. People fish, swim, kayak, canoe, paddleboards. People cruise around the lakes, sightseeing, bird watching, water sports, some that people are happy with, some, as we were discussing earlier, people are not so happy with, but it's used for water sports. And then we think it's important to have regular updates about the lake, so to improve the communication for the villagers to use, so around the fishing and things like that, but also as a marketing tool to sell the village to others. Okay, so the Lakes Committee Charter, what do we do? So this is kind of the highlights out of the charter. It's about a 3-page charter we just discussed. We might work on that a little bit more. But one of the key things is water resources. So monitor the levels and take actions when appropriate. we have a team of volunteers on every lake who send in weekly water levels, so you can see how the water levels move. Some of them send in SECI data, but they also, as a result of them looking at it and talking to their neighbors, if there's something to be highlighted. So for example, on Sophia, Bill circulates to everybody, and he came back also and said that they had pretty good reports on the weeds this year, so echoed your comments. So that's another important part of the charter is lake safety, something that we talk about a lot. There's been improvement in signs, buoys are constantly being monitored, the lights on the buoys. Lake conditions, and this is something that comes up in our assessment, but opportunity for the committee members to highlight things about lake conditions, and then we can prioritize, or Brad can prioritize based on that kind of input. Also the lake conditions, as we'll pass out that handout of the lake assessment in color, but that also is a nice tool, I think, to feed into the budgeting, because you can see where are the issues, and then where there's issues, once everybody agrees those are issues, then it makes a pretty strong case for, yeah, that's something we should budget for. Herbicides is a important part of, monitoring is an important part of the lake management. And when everything's good, it's good, but, you know, as Brad talked a little while ago, there are treatments on Sophia and Maria to keep the lakes functional and able to be used. Monitoring fish data, that's something we just discussed, but monitoring fish data is something that's done usually every year, and it gives you a good it's a good indication of how healthy the lakes are. It's can give you some warning signs if there's something going on at the fish data shows something that's gone awry. And another part of the charter is organizing volunteers when appropriate. I think one case of that would be like the put habitat into the lakes. People get together and Brad organizes with the fishing clubs and put habitat around the various lakes. Okay, another important part of the lakes department is the dredging of the lakes. This is important for the lake quality and usability. You know, as you get silting, it starts to be hard to get out of the lakes, out on the lakes with boats. It's also important with the drawdowns is so that the homeowners can, and the shoreliners can do seawall repairs of the lake. So this is a pretty important ongoing activity that happens on a periodic basis to keep the lakes healthy. And this, I'll hand out that color slide, or we can hand out that color slide, but this is the assessments we just talked about. And the each of the lakes has a committee member responsible for that lake, and we update on the various criteria periodically. So running down that list, ramp, dock, porta potty, parking. And what we've tried to do is working on now as well is trying to calibrate the ratings, because again, it's not, Tom and somebody and I might look at it and have a different assessment, but if we talk about it, you'll kind of get the common assessment, and through that, in discussion with Brad, you'll be able to prioritize what are the things that should be worked on. And then compliance is something that's gotten a lot of attention in the last year. We've had some emails even prior to this meeting around that. And there was a subcommittee, which Jerry was involved in with several others, made some recommendations, and these were passed along. I think a big part of that was there was a lot of attention given as a result of that, and from others in the community. This is even an emotional issue, I'll say, to the level that people really don't like the idea that they're paying for something and somebody else is not paying for it. So even beyond the money, this is a hot button. Usually what happens when we start talking about this, it takes over an hour and there's no way to stop the discussion. So I don't rule out that happens this afternoon either. What we're talking about is unauthorized use of the lake, non-compliance on the annual decal and date use tag purchases. Brad just highlighted, I guess, that we're seeing more money come in, and that could also be a result of the extra attention on compliance. And then the other is lake rule violations and enforcement. And this is a little bit tricky because there's laws that can be enforced, and then there's policy. And sometimes it's a little bit tough to how do you enforce policy, particularly if you have unauthorized people on the lake who there's no way to identify them. And there were a couple of examples cited earlier today of people speeding around, and actually somebody else, Bill sent around an email, he had spotted somebody just zooming up and down Sophia on the weekend, yeah. Okay, there's been considerable improvement. I think Brad working with Charlie Brown and with the attention, so there's no doubt I've seen a considerable improvement this year. And then, okay, the new item that's come up in the last weeks, and we discussed it even earlier today, are the wake boats and no wake zones, and these are pretty current issues right now. It seems to be more wake boats on the lake, so something to come back and discuss. I think somebody from the board sent, I think Diana sent something around about this too, so it got some attention. Maybe it was on Nextdoor.
She did.
Where they got it.
On next one.
Yeah, so it's gonna get some more attention, because there's people who have them, what's allowed, and I guess you gave a historical perspective that boats that were allowed at one time, well, these boats weren't even around at the time the regulations were done. So that was the overview that I had in mind, and then get input, and I suppose there'll be an open discussion, but.
I think you did a great job, as we talked about, when you sent it around, Ray. The only comment is you've tied the Lakes Committee to almost every slide except for lake dredging. Is there any way that you can tie the Lakes Committee to the lake dredging?
I'll tell you, yeah, it's a good point. Here's what my thinking was on that, was that there's three things, in a time when we're in the financial crunch, there were three activities, as I thought about that, are important to have, so maybe tie it back in there. But dredging is important for the ongoing health of the lakes. That's something, and those are the big ticket items. Dredging, the herbicides, and then, those are the two biggest things we spend
Those are
money
the
on.
biggest ones, unless we do some type of capital expense on,
And then,
riprap or something like that, a big project.
and those fall out of, and to me, those fall out of that chart. They're all the things that need work, like the parking lot, or fixed boat docks, or riprap. So those come up on an ad hoc basis every year. But dredging and herbicides are an ongoing part of keeping the lakes healthy. But you have a suggestion how to, so maybe I didn't, to tie that in, it's not in the charter, but it's one of the key activities that they manage.
That the Lakes does, but it's not the Lake Committee. That was my only point. It's not our committee that really has much to do with that, unless we could tie something in. And maybe it's budget type stuff. I
Well,
don't know.
and that's why I put it as a budget, in a time when you're looking at cutting everything back, just to make people aware, these are the 2 or 3 things that the lakes rely on to stay in a healthy form. Okay?
Good short pitch.
On the dredging comment, historically, I remember correctly, the committee used to be involved, and probably still is to an extent, in the scheduling process of the dredging, because the schedule was occasionally adjusted based on recommendations from the committee if there was a particular problem on one lake versus another.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and we could do that, but I think we could definitely do that. That's not a problem. We've kind of I do have a schedule for the next. It's overlapping into its own rotation now. So, but if something were to happen, that could be something we definitely consider. So,
Well, and I think going forward, you could build this into if I understand correctly, the management of the POA is going to go for kind of a 5, 3, 1 year. You could go back in and make a 5-year lakes plan, a 3-year lakes plan, and 1 year. And then the POA can pull together all those, and they'd have kind of a consistent management approach instead of a hodgepodge of
Is there anything preventing some of the shoreliners on, like Granada, we built a small dock over there. If you go over there and you see a board needs to be replaced, is there anything preventing one of us to go over there and nail a new board in place? I mean,
I don't think so. I think you could do that, right?
would that
I
cause a
would
liability problem?
POA
I-
might get involved.
Yeah, I'd prefer if you see something messed up
Yeah.
at a POA dock, just let us know. We'll
yeah,
take
yeah.
care of it.
Yeah, they
But with a property owner dock, if that was what you're
No, I'm talking
referencing.
about like the public dock, if we're not.
Yeah,
You go in there and you see a board missing, what does it take to nail a new board in there? Would that?
let
would
me
that
know.
present any-
I've got some boards on at the office. We keep a few boards around, so just, I'd prefer you just let me know. Cause some of the docks are made weird. Some of the docks you have to go in with a grinder and cut a weld to remove a piece of trim to pull a board out. And then you gotta re-weld the trim back on. So while it may seem as simple as just putting a new board down, it may not quite be that way. But yeah, if you see one that's, something's broken or something like that, just give me a call, shoot me an email, let me know.
Ray, just a couple of points real quick. When you're talking about things like SECI readings, which some people aren't gonna know what that is, I would just say, let's use some common terminology like water clarity.
Right.
And if you wanna say a SECI device is used to determine water clarity, so whatever. So there's no question about that. And then we had talked about, and I'm not sure if this is the right place or time to do that, but we had talked about making sure the board knows what your priorities are for finance right now, like the boat or the motor. Has that already been addressed, or things like that, something that we need to say?
Well, my thinking, but let's discuss it, and then if you have it, I had Brad's short list. What I tried to make sure was consistent. I didn't think this was a time when the main focus is financial survival.
Right.
Having been on boards of companies myself, when business managers came in and they started talking about spending money where you were in cost-cutting mode, boy, it just turned you off. So my thinking was if we highlight the areas we're working on and how we work on it, then when people are around and talking about the budget, oh, remember, these are some of the things. So that's, rather than try to talk numbers when I don't think people are prepared to listen to numbers.
You want to prioritize, and you don't want a wish list.
Right.
A couple of them I've looked at are wish lists.
Right.
We used to have a term in retail, is it necessary or is it nice?
Yeah.
If it's nice, we probably don't need to do it. If it's necessary, we probably need to do it.
And it probably depends on, right now you're in an environment where we're somewhat in survival mode. There's times when things are going well and you want to enhance things to promote the marketing. But I was thinking in a 30-minute meeting when no one's talking about budget, to start throwing numbers in there, we might get into the wrong discussion.
Well, again, you need to prioritize. That's the biggest thing. Certainly dredging, I would think, would be a big priority.
Right.
And the water conditions, clarity, all of that is a priority because people live there.
Right.
And
And that doesn't cost any money. The herbicides is the thing that comes up.
And I like what you did with the real estate values, because that's important.
Oh, yeah.
That's very important.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
you're on the right track here.
When the hydrilla issue came, what that could have done to real estate values, if that turned into a swamp that you couldn't
Oh,
sell.
my God, that would have been awful.
It would have been
That
awful,
would've been
yeah.
awful.
Yeah, I think one area, and I'm not saying to say this, but just be prepared, most of the complaining and whining and gnashing of teeth I've seen on next door relative to compliance, the no wake and the wake boats and stuff, is people will bring up, it's battering my seawall, it's all about me, me, me. I think from our perspective, let's not forget the whole thing. It's also battering all the common properties. It's battering the lakes, it's battering the marinas, battering that island that we're about to lose, those sorts of things. So I think it's not only each personal's,
No, right.
thing, it's the whole ball of wax.
Sure. Okay.
You gonna have, paper copies for everybody, or not? Just do it that way.
I wasn't gonna have, for the presentation, I can send everybody's got an electronic copy of it.
Yeah. No, I meant not for us, I meant for this afternoon for the.
We could give them a paper.
I don't
How
know
many?
whether that'd be worth it or not.
Uh,
You're gonna hand out that sheet anyhow.
We could probably send
Bring
them.
10, bring 10, you'll have plenty.
Yeah. Okay.
If you wanna send me the final, I'll print it at the office.
I know most
Okay.
of us can't read.
That way you don't have to refer to it.
Okay.
What was
I
it?
did all mine.
Is it in that email? Did you change the 16 that you sent there?
Easy.
I might have changed it because I had comments from you. No, that's it. That's, the only thing that changed was this chart in there. But I'll bring a handout of this in color that everybody can have it, since this is, you can kind of talk about every issue with this if somebody wants to dig in.
Mine at the office is gonna print black and white, that's gonna be the only issue, but.
I can
if you
print,
need
I can
color
print
in
that, yeah. I think I got 6 or 8 copies here, I'll print a few more. Yeah, I put a mark on that.
Thanks.
And then I have Dennis, we're gonna send him one more. Okay, so then we go to, committee member comments, we went around the lakes, but maybe I'll do one more time around if anybody has any other comments, or maybe they've said them already. Does anybody have, because normally we go around, just so as Dick knows, we give everybody a chance to bring up what issues, so we have everybody's issues covered, but we've kind of covered. Anybody have an issue?
Anybody have any, I sent this out yesterday, the roster.
Got it.
Everybody, all the information correct?
Mine was correct.
Can I ask a question on the, I guess it's to you, Brad. Are we still gonna be able to do some riprap on Kalala? We talked about that, cleaning it up and doing
Make
some
sure
of
I
that.
have current
I know that's
information. I'm sure I've got it from before, but I'm not sure.
that's a bigger
So if you can-
cost.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'll
your
be,
current information
that'll be in
on your
budget for
items.
2021. So that's something that we, in our work meeting, I've got a few things besides policy now that I've thought about it a little bit, but we need to talk about that when we want to try to do that, but that would be part of the budget for 2021. Yeah.
When do you present that budget for 2021?
September, October, something like that, but we need to start working on it now,
Okay.
so.
Hey, Ray, I do have one thing, I'm just gonna bring it to the committee. I know we've always done our meetings in the mornings, and it seems like I always have a conflict, something I've gotta change or get out of for the meeting. What does everybody think about maybe doing our meetings in the afternoon?
I agree.
That's been one of Carrie's things.
I have wanted to change that for a long time.
You just killed
If it
my
doesn't
best
matter,
coffee.
and whatever's convenient for everybody, but Wednesday mornings, I've always got a conflict, so.
For me, I have no problem to make a switch if it fits for other people, if it's,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it as long as it's not too late.
yeah, as long as I know when it is.
Maybe mid-afternoon, 2 o'clock, something like that.
I'd say no
You
later.
you do have
No matter
to,
what.
you'd
you're
have to
gonna
move it off of
conflicts.
Wednesdays though, because the board's work sessions are at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But what-
if it's in the afternoon on Wednesday, I got a golf group I'm in on Wednesday, I barely get to it if we have a meeting. And today, like I'm not gonna get to it. Well, it depends on the time of year. So if it gets earlier, yeah, it could be.
Well, you wanna make a
So what my point is, early, I'd say, I don't know, would earlier be better for you in the morning? Like 8 o'clock instead of 8:30? No?
Noon?
No,
Noon
so,
would
so
be-
morning
Noon or
period,
later?
morning period is no good for you, Jerry.
Yeah.
So you wanna say, let's just figure, all in favor of noon on Wednesdays?
Or is it just
No.
Wednesdays?
Yes?
Is it Wednesdays the problem?
Yeah, it's Wednesday. Well, it's not just the day of the week. It's just typically I've got stuff going on in the mornings that I have to reschedule because of the meeting. But this is a priority for me, so I'm always gonna be here for it.
So
I just
no-
thought I'd throw it out
No,
there
no,
in case.
it may be
afternoons
convenient
would
for-
be better.
Another day would not help then.
No.
So, I don't know.
Well,
I'd rather have it at 8 o'clock,
I would too.
get it over sooner.
we can have 2 meetings.
Yeah.
I'm not volunteering for 2 meetings.
No.
2 meetings?
Well, so maybe we'll come back to it. It doesn't sound like you got unanimous support on that,
Okay.
Jerry, but I guess we can come back to that. Everybody think about maybe there's a more convenient time.
There's always gonna be
Okay.
problems.
New business, okay, changes to the committee. We have 2 candidates. Who are good?
We have, Cliff is new, I think he was at our work
Right.
meeting. I don't think he was at he may have got an invite to the May meeting on the Zoom, I think he did. I think Cliff was on the Zoom meeting, in May. But Cliff was at our work meeting that we had at Balboa Pavilion, which is on Lake Granada. If anybody hasn't met Cliff, swing by and introduce. We do have 2 applicants for the other position that's open. We're gonna try to get those around and try to do probably a Zoom meeting tomorrow to meet with those folks. That would be Ray and myself. We're planning on having our previous board member, Dick, would you like to sit in on that when we do the Zoom meeting with the other candidates?
Not really.
Okay.
He's got enough to do.
I'm sure he does. We don't want to add on to, so we'll try to get that done tomorrow and get it taken care of.
Okay. We'll move to the officer election. So, can we get a nomination for chairman?
I nominate Ellen.
I'll second that. Other nomination? All in favor?
Ask Alan if he's gonna, ask
Oh,
Alan if he's
I knew he was
gonna
over
accept
this.
that.
I already discussed it with Ellen. I told
Okay,
him I was gonna.
okay, I just kinda, I was like,
No, no,
We're
he's-
trying to
he's
stay
totally-
quiet over there.
Before we
Yeah.
voting into this.
Yeah, he told me about 30 minutes before the meeting.
Yeah, he's tired, he's been on a 2.5-day trip back from California in a vehicle, so I caught him in a weak moment.
So I say
advantage
vote
of it.
before he talks.
Yeah.
Ask him that before he wakes up, you get a good answer.
Yeah.
Will you agree?
Yeah, we're fine.
All in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, nomination for vice chairman? Jerry, you interested?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we hadn't really talked about this. I didn't know we were doing officers today, so, but I knew about.
On the agenda.
Thank you for that.
So maybe you better not be vice chair.
I'll
Or
go with
another
Jerry.
nomination?
Who is it now?
It was Dennis.
it was
Dennis
Dennis.
resigned.
I move that we nominate Jerry for
I
vice chair.
second that.
Okay. Any other nominations?
Thank you, Jerry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jerry said aye also?
Yes, aye.
Okay. He's the main aye in that one. Okay, nomination for secretary?
I think Rob's doing a good job, so
I've had enough of that.
you don't want me to return the favor?
Well,
Does anybody volunteer to be secretary?
How about one of the new people?
We could.
No.
That we haven't added yet, so that could be part of the deal.
I'll continue to be until we find somebody else, if
Brad,
that's what's necessary.
make that a contingent for the 2 new noms you're looking at.
We can throw that out
How
there.
about grandfathering the newest guy away from that?
Which
Well,
one
Dennis
needs
is
to
retired now,
serve
maybe
as
he-
the secretary?
You're retired completely now, aren't you, or not?
I am.
You are.
Yeah, coronavirus got me retired just a little bit early, which was great.
Would you be secretary?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yay.
Okay.
I'd second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good.
Okay, so, I'm gonna throw this out, because Ray is going off and Alan is coming on. Do both of y'all wanna be on the Zoom meeting with the
Sure.
new
That's
candidates?
tomorrow.
That would be
You think
tomorrow?
Sure.
I'll get that to you.
And Al, if you're interested, would you want to make the presentation this afternoon? I'm happy to do it, but I'm also, since you're.
Guess what? You just got volunteered again.
No, I'm happy to do it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if you'll get.
Well, it's
the,
not official till June, till the June meeting. Well, this is the June meeting, never mind. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Okay. No problem, no, but if you wanted to, I'm happy to.
I would just soon be there and
Okay,
speak if anybody asks a question I can help with.
okay, fair enough.
Can I ask a question while we're on this? Did everybody get a copy of this? If I got this right as far as the column called current term, Tom is on a 3-year term. Is that correct?
As far as I know.
I have 1 more year. Dennis, you see, Dennis shows that he's off this year, but,
Yeah, but
but
He-
you've
He's back
extended
on.
I'm back
Huh?
on.
He's back on for 3 more.
for 3 more, so.
Yes.
So he's till 24 then?
Yeah.
Or 23?
23.
Okay. And then Cliff will be till 23. Ray, you've extended to another year. I've got it down to 22, is that right?
Am I?
No. Well, how many years you've been now?
I'm 3 years, but I
Right.
can't tell what, I came in, I replaced somebody, I didn't really understand how.
I've got it
I'm not sure what
19,
mine is.
I've got it
I
down
can- I'll
19
get
to
with-
22. but-
I'll get with Ella to get everybody's,
They asked me to read. if
I'll
I-
get with Ella on
Yeah,
that.
when I came in, I took over,
Did you come in 19 or was it just?
I'm here over 3 years. I'm here over 3 years,
He
but I took
came
over
in-
for somebody.
He came in 16, I believe.
Yeah, so maybe 4 years I'm here.
I think
I'm
Ray
sure.
came in
So I
at
should
16.
put you down at least till 21 now, right?
Well, let's,
Let
yeah.
me check, let me
let's-
check
yeah,
with Ella.
yeah, Whatever
I'll-
it is.
I'll get you,
21.
I'll get you what Ella provides me, because she keeps up with.
Jerry, you're till
terms and all that
22,
stuff.
right?
Yeah.
I got that right? Okay. And Carrie, you're like me till 21. Alan's till 22. And Don's forever.
Forever.
No, this is my last year on the rec committee too.
Is it?
So you're gonna be up, so you're not on the rec committee any longer?
Well, 21. I'll be on it until May of next year.
Okay, okay,
Just
so.
my
okay,
last year.
Okay.
And my last year on committees. I've gone through the Lakes Committee for 7 years, and this will be 6 years on the rec committee.
You paid your dues.
And I'm retiring from committee.
I'm surprised you lasted that long.
Yeah, one little minor comment would be
Yeah.
like Ray, some of them show April, but I think the new.
Yeah, all right, I need to change, I
Yeah,
thought I
04,
changed
06.
some of them. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right, they need to be August, you're right, or June rather.
Yeah.
You're right, I'll change that.
Okay.
And you can confirm that with,
Yeah.
I'll send you a copy of my update, maybe you can confirm with Elder, or I can call her if you want.
I'll shoot her an email today.
Okay, okay.
Okay, should we go through the club reports? Anglers Club, anybody?
Anglers don't typically meet in July and August, canceled the June meeting, so we canceled all of the June tournaments. And so we are not meeting until September. We'll probably have tournaments in September, October, and November. We're not gonna do awards this year because we didn't have sufficient number of tournaments to do our normal.
Oh, we'll still probably have a banquet.
But we won't do any awards for fisherman or angler of the year or anything like that.
Won't do it like the NBA and have the finals
No,
after there's been no season.
no awards this year.
Yeah.
And we're still sponsoring the fish and the challenge. And we still need to get with you on, we're holding that $1,500 donation for Habitat, lake
We
improvements.
probably need to just,
Well, actually, we probably even have more of that set aside because
yeah.
we raise dues
Yeah.
just for that reason to try to have more money. But it's waiting on something to use it for, right?
Yeah, we're waiting on input from Brad on.
As far as I know, I'll speak to that right now. As far as I know, folks are starting to see fish on the artificial habitat. It took a couple of years for it to really get established, but people are starting to see fish on that stuff.
You need to convince Craig of that. He's absolutely a stubborn-mindedness that was a waste of money.
Okay.
Get him some
So we
snorkel gear and let him go down second.
we need to somehow get around that, since he is currently the president of the club. It'd
Okay.
be difficult to.
We need to,
Oh my, we're broadcasting this.
Well, maybe it works like the TV, it turned off, that's the point.
yeah, yeah.
We'll
So-
All right.
Red
we'll
lights
redact
go on.
that statement.
Yeah. The red
Oh,
lights.
well.
We get Larry to remove it.
Brad, just briefly about the habitat, I think I brought it up one time before with all this commercial property for sale around the village, and they're starting to clear lots and things like that. Have you had a chance maybe to touch base with anybody at Cooper about maybe us harvesting some of that material?
We had an agreement with Cooper,
Yeah.
the beginning of the year to remove some cedar trees from their property. It rained forever, so we really didn't get to it. And about the time it started drying up enough for us to do it, they put all their property on the market for sale.
Right.
And when I started seeing the signs, I called Ernie at Cooper, and he asked that we hold off until they're finalized, whether they were gonna sell or whether they weren't. And a lot of that property is sold, so I see no reason for that. I don't see them allowing us to do that now with their properties on sale.
We'll have to touch base with the new property owner to see if they would allow it.
Yeah.
Because they're probably just gonna cut them down anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. The bait caches, I guess there's nobody here to say anything about that.
I don't think so.
And Balboa Yacht Club is nothing.
Nothing going on there.
They were gonna do a parade around up to the 4th of July. I think I saw something.
Pardon?
They were gonna do a boat parade on the 4th of July.
Well, we're seeing what kind of support we've got for it. Yeah, that's something that's in the mill, so to speak.
I think they're also pushing a cleanup day later this month.
Yeah.
A cleanup day, I think they also push that.
Yeah,
I saw that.
that's,
Okay. Then the last item is the lakes section of the rules and regs. So Alan had put together, he had done a kind of a position paper where everything was a hodgepodge. Here's my take on your first paper. And then the second one was you put together a proposal that everybody looked at. Maybe the one, again, I had a question because I don't keep up with this so well, but I think that the board threw away a bunch of stuff. I'm not sure what they threw away, so I don't know if this is,
Well, what the board did, the last board, or 2 boards, 3 boards ago, lifted out of the CMP 120 pages of protective covenants. We felt that those were unnecessary. We felt those became a deterrent to building in the village, and we basically scrapped and went back to the original protective covenants. Now, we are amenable to adding back other covenants, but as it stands, we've greatly simplified that.
okay. So this proposal, I'll let maybe Alan speak to
Well,
it. This is different, this is
This was the rules and regs of the
Yeah,
village.
right.
And
You haven't
each
changed
has
any of the rules and
sections
regs
for-
stuff.
Well, we've changed a few bylaws.
Bylaws, but he's talking rules and regs.
Well, you talking policies?
Yeah.
or-
Yeah, policy,
Yeah,
we've been out of the policy manual.
Yeah,
it's
there's so
policy.
many different
There's
documents.
some policies that have been amended too.
That's-
And I don't know.
This isn't
where
Well,
that
this
is.
week
This
it
is
said, this, and maybe everybody wants to look at it again, but it's in a format that's much more consistent than it was.
Okay.
And I
Bring
think
bring
it's-
that this afternoon to the
I
work
think it's
session.
logical, yeah.
Bring it to the work session.
And maybe you want to make some comments about it, Alan, since you did
Well,
most of
if
it.
I was gonna say, though, you go into the Explore the Village website, it's a long, long link, but it eventually goes down to /rules and regulations, RED 51618 PDF, which is the current version, I think, is still, I looked about a month ago, and that version's still there. And that document has, sections for different things. I can't remember all of them, because it's a whole bunch of them. But one of them is lakes, which I looked at. And it, by and large, covered, I think, most of the stuff that any of us would probably put in our rules and regs, but it was disorganized. To me, it looked like a document that had been updated 3 or 4 times over the years, and they'd stick paragraphs in the wrong areas, or they would duplicate paragraphs in a few places. And so what I tried to do was just to reorganize it. And the other thing was to actually add paragraph numbers and letters and things, so that if you were a compliance guy and you were going to write a ticket to somebody, you could actually reference a specific paragraph, because right now, there's nothing marked in it. And that's not just lakes, that's the whole darn document. So, what I'm.
One thing that's happened over the last 50 years, and I just had a long discussion with Jerry Urick about this. I don't know whether any of you know Jerry. Jerry's a former political science professor. And Jerry's been involved for 20 years in all the government affairs stuff in the village. And he basically said that in a POA, what happens sometimes is that everybody tries to be an attorney. And they try to cast things in legalese without being an attorney. And what they should do is just cast it in plain language. It's your document. It's not, some judge's document. It's the document for the association. And the emphasis should be to put that kind of language into common language, common sense stuff, right? And quit trying to be an attorney when you do so. So bring that, and we'll see if we can get it worked in, within the framework of where it fits.
Yeah, I when you brought it up, I reread it, and you could say things slightly different, you could say the same, but to me, it's very, it's pretty straightforward, it's
And
3 pages.
it really didn't change much from the original.
Yeah, you just organized it.
It just organized it. and
Yeah.
clarified it.
One of your points on what you researched too, Alan, was the fact that we have so many documents out there. The lakes policy was another thing Brad was working on at one time. I don't think we've ever made any changes to the lakes policy thing. It's in, policies, you get the policy documents, you get the rules and regs, you got the bylaws, you got a couple others. And I think you were looking at trying to see how all of these actually say the same thing, because sometimes they don't.
Right. You need to have a source document, and then if somebody else wants to put out another document, it can refer back to the
Yeah.
source.
So it gets conflicting, and I don't know if the board has been looking at any of that kind of stuff, or the
Well,
governmental affairs.
we have, and, I just learned something today from Brad. This wakeboarding business, I have no idea what that meant until
Yeah.
this morning.
Yeah.
And I guess the technology has changed, boats have changed, and so forth to accommodate this kind of thing. And that kind of new language probably needs to be incorporated in
I think
what
so.
you're doing.
And one of the big disconnects that I saw was going through to explore the village website when it talked about lakes. It disagreed in several places with what the rules and regs said, or wasn't very clear, sort of thing. And most people, that's probably where they're gonna go to get information,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that needs to reflect what the rules and regs are.
Consistency
Yeah.
is so important, because you give people ideas of one thing, I thought we could do that, and of course, we've got all kinds of, what do you want to call it, history, of which people have been using the lakes over the years and without any problem, and then all of a sudden we're trying to be a little more controlled about it, and
So from going forward, so does everybody want a chance to reread this before we submit this? Because it's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been since February,
So
I think.
to me, it reads okay, but maybe everybody wants a chance to reread it and have an input.
I don't
and
know
then we
if
give it.
I don't know if this afternoon is some.
For me, it's okay.
If that's a rush,
Is the time
reread it
to do
and
that?
get back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we at least ought to take a look at it from
yeah.
the boat perspective.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what's in there was pretty much what was in there.
Yeah.
It just maybe worded a little different.
And that rules and regs may be, I think the rules and regs is where the wake boat limitation is. I don't know that it's even in policy. I think it's in the rules and regs.
I don't remember.
So, yeah, that's something we need to check on.
Okay.
And there was one other thing, I also, and I don't know if we want to discuss this here or just maybe later, but I did a at some meeting, I think at a work meeting, we wanted to have like a one-page handout that could go when people pick up their stickers or they mail their stickers to them, that would delineate, you know, at the bottom was the graphics that show them where to put them, which typically is handled with the stickers.
Yeah.
But it also had a set of rules that would apply to all the lakes. And it would just be another opportunity for people to maybe read something.
Well, and I thought we agreed to do that.
Yeah, I thought we did, but
I even thought that somebody brought it to the POA, but
I don't know if they have.
well, if it wasn't you, then
Wasn't
nobody
me.
probably did.
Wasn't
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah,
be
that-
something that would be like a little trifold, something that, even if it was when they're picking up their information, there's so much club information there now, it could be something that was there. You know, when they give them up a decal, say, hey, grab one of those Lakes informationals for,
Yeah, this I thought ought to go with the
Yeah.
decal.
Yeah.
Well, there used to be a lakes brochure
yeah.
that hasn't been published in,
Yeah.
I mean, because I think I may have done the last update to it, and that was probably 9 years ago, 8 years ago.
I think it was like '09.
Yeah.
We've got an opening on the Lakes Committee. You can get back on
You get started again, Don.
get it going again.
I may have some of those old brochures around.
I have a few at the office.
I think I have one I scanned on my computer.
I mean, but that's something like what you're talking about. It
Well-
needs to be updated,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it needs to be that long,
Yeah.
but.
I think that one focused, not, so- you know, it didn't focus on decal placement, for instance, but information.
It did go through all the rules were in there.
Yeah, this was what you, it was the one page that was taken from the sign off
Yes,
the.
yes.
The sign, we took a picture of the signs that all the boat docks. Because one of the arguments, one of the things that comes up is people who live on the lakes rarely go in through the,
To the ramp.
to the ramp.
Right.
So they don't
They don't
see
know
it.
the rules.
And then, and that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I didn't know the rules.
So basically, it was a regurgitation of that
That's
sign,
what I think.
but we changed the speed limits to apply to the lakes.
Yeah, maybe.
And pretty much everything else was the same, I think. And then down to the bottom, we just cut and pasted the graphics that have been getting handed out. So it was just a one pager, so.
Okay.
And
Reread this, everybody, and then you can reinvigorate it
Mhm.
at the next meeting. Okay, motion to adjourn?
So do we want to do our meeting? We throw that out first.
Okay.
Wait a minute, there was something.
Has anybody
Oh,
got a?
one thing I want to bring up is, what about this afternoon? Who do you want there? Or is there a limit on number of people that can be there?
I think everybody was invited, so, some people expressed the interest. So I think, Diana, I think, sent me, because I said, yeah, well, it's committee, but I guess everybody's invited.
Well, you know, you've got the COVID stuff.
I mean,
I don't know
I
what-
guess you could
I'm gonna sit.
stage back there or out here somewhere
Yeah,
and
I
come
don't
in
know.
for your part of the meeting. I don't know how,
Well, maybe let's ask, who wants to go?
I had planned to come and just support, but
Yeah.
if we're gonna have too many people, it's no big deal.
It doesn't matter, I don't have to be there. I've got something I can probably help a neighbor with today rather than tomorrow, but it doesn't matter. It just depends on what, you know. you
So
all know.
who wants to go? Everybody raise it, and then how many do you think should,
Thanks, Don.
I got the impression from Diana that whoever wants to come, can come. I didn't specifically ask her, but the way she wrote it.
Well, they're having other committees come in too tomorrow.
But we could leave when we're done.
yeah, I think the best thing is to stage somewhere, come in for your part of the meeting, and then you'll have to leave.
But I'm supposing all these
I
seats are
think
empty.
you can stage back there, and I think you can stage out here.
What you mean by stage, just sit in separate tables? back there?
Separate tables back there, or separate out here, call you in for your part of the meeting. Bang, bang, you're in, you're out.
Early in the meeting, or?
I don't have the agenda here, I think it's early.
I think Lakes is first.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
see,
you're
they
early.
said Lace would be first, and we could
Okay.
leave right after if we wanted to, which,
So whoever wants to come, will you just come and we'll figure out how that will handle at the time?
yeah, I'd say if you, unless somebody else is sitting, you're not inviting anybody else, so we can sit in those tables, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, but stage,
Yeah.
6 feet.
And see if they have a reason to say,
They're all
oh, so many
staged
in at
already.
a
That's what it
time.
looks like to me, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
You guys don't wear masks in the meetings?
No, you can't and talk.
Yeah. Well, we didn't wear masks. I brought one just in case, but we didn't. This is about the only inside place I am at, except for home without a mask. Okay. Motion to adjourn or anything?
Work meeting,
Oh, yeah, work meeting, I'm sorry.
work meeting. When do we wanna do the work meeting?
Okay.
Everybody check your calendar.
Let's do it at 8:30 on a Wednesday.
You know, let's split the difference and do it during his golf time.
Yeah,
When did we do the last
Yeah.
one? We did,
Tuesday morning we did it, on a
we
morning.
did a morning.
we didn't do it
No,
at
not Tuesday
8:30.
morning, no.
So we ought to do it in the afternoon then to accommodate Jerry here.
I prefer an afternoon.
Say,
Make a proposal and then we'll go with it, Jerry.
So we're looking at
3
next
o'clock.
week,
Not on
couple of weeks.
Not on Thursday.
3, how about a
No,
Monday?
Tuesday.
How-
You were saying Tuesday, weren't you?
Tuesday, Monday? How about
Make
Monday?
a, Jerry, make a proposal, we'll see if it fits.
Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, I would recommend Tuesday at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
16th?
Tuesday the 16th at 2 o'clock.
I'm good with that.
Okay? Everybody happy?
16th.
At 2 o'clock,
Sounds like you got a winner.
and we're gonna try to do it, pavilion or?
Yeah, I'd vote for outside. Why just get inside the meeting room?
I think it's supposed to be in the mid-80s next week,
That's okay, we can stand the heat.
so, I'm good with that. I can, if that works for everybody else, if that's what we want to
How
do.
about 3 o'clock?
Anytime in the afternoon.
It's okay with me.
3's all right with me.
3 a little bit better? That still gets everybody back for dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
3. So what was your time?
3 o'clock, Tuesday,
3
the
o'clock.
16th?
Tuesday the 16th.
And where? Balboa?
You want? you should
Balboa
do it.
Pavilion?
Let's try to do it about Balboa Pavilion.
And the documents are gonna get resent so we can study them before?
Yeah, you
Email it.
want to send it around, so I send the right one?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think, I dug it out.
I can do it.
If you don't find it right away, just call me, I can,
Okay.
I have it on my computer. Yeah, just this, I think this final one and that one.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
God bless.
Could I ask a favor? When you update your lake assessment, could you forward me an electronic copy in addition to the copy I get this afternoon?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Now motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? See you guys
Aye.
later.